you see a fleet of ships bravely battling with many nautiloids. All of these Mind Flayer ships, and you can see the glow of a planet in the background, and at the front of this fleet of ships is the Breeze Traveler up at the front.
Oh my god.
And you could see him yelling yelling into a magical cone he's holding that is allowing him to command all of these ships. You see PC, the cricket crane, directing all of these other fish folk to hurl these large goblets out at other nautiloids. You see Chubstubble, the skull goblin, and Artemis, this skull cyclops, fixing this hole in the side of the ship quickly and together and yelling out commands. And this whole fleet is seems to be battling these nautiloids that are holding off of them of an invasion of a planet. And then it jerks away, and you see what looks like an open field that all have Githkas in it, like a pile of Githkas just laid down in it. But then as you see all of these ants moving in around it, you realize those aren't ants, but those are other Kreen, and all of these crescent-shaped ships are building themselves, and the vision goes out, and you can see that there is a fleet inside of Jadorian, and that they are arming themselves, and you hear one Kreen yell to the other, still no movement today, but we are able to defend ourselves again, as one of the ship lands and someone walks off, and you see out from inside of the workshop that you've been in, that where these ships started to form, a very small Moon Boy-sized figure step out from that workshop, and you hear, "Good. They will be back." And you see Moon Girl step out from this hangar, except one of her arms seems to be missing, and you see a hand just floating around her head in the same way that a moon was around her head before, but except it is a hand, and it quickly looks to, you recognize it as her own hand, just orbiting her own head, and she says, "They will be back, and we will be ready." And then there's another flash, and you see the planet of Garden. This root system that you've seen that is a whole full planet of all of this archipelago of planets, except it has a huge hole blown inside of the core. It looks like a tunnel that has been drilled there, and this vision just zooms down inside of it, and as it goes in, you recognize bits and pieces, and as it gets closer and closer, you can see that it is a hole blown into the palace of the Skull Goblin King, where before it was occupied by all of these nautiloids and by Mind Flayers there, and none of that is there. There are all of these round, they look like puffball ships, just these orb-like ships placed all over. And you see something that you recognize inside of all of them, which is a ship the size of a house, many houses stacked on top of each other. That is the Ark, that seems to have planted itself in the courtyard of the Hall of the Skull Goblin King. And you know that the cavalry of Hakatha, the Beholder fleet, has clearly landed at the Palace of the Skull Goblin King. You see...
Didn't we ask them to do that?
You did. You see what is... you know the description of an image of a beholder. You've seen it before. And you can just see this silhouette floating off of the Ark into the Palace of the Skull Goblin King with all these eye stalks on this large orb, and you just hear in the distance. And then there's another flash, and you see some of the ships that you recognized before. You immediately recognize them as the fleet that the Breeze Traveler was commanding earlier, but it's just a couple of them, and they're isolated, and they seem to be panicked. The fish folk aboard are panicked as one of them's yelling, "We got separated, we're gonna..." And a bunch more of, you see these squid-shaped ships show up and just annihilate them. as a fleet shows up to destroy these couple of ships floating there, and the image zooms in, and you see standing at the front of one of them is a fish folk you recognize, and he's yelling into a similar magic megaphone that is allowing him to communicate with his fleet of ships, and he says, "Remember, we do not stoop, we do not fall, no gods, no fear, no flutes." And you recognize your boy right up the front there, Flute. I guess you don't see this, but you recognize him.
Who, Hoot?
Hoot, yeah, like standing up at the front there.
Oh my God,
and,
Hoot!
Who it is?
Your bastard son.
And then it cuts one more time, and you're back at the Palace of the Skull Goblin King, and you're following that silhouette in there as it enters into the throne room, the place that you've been before, standing in front of the heart of the God's Heart, the wall of doors, where you know the throne of the Skull Goblin King is. And you hear a voice that you recognize, which is Powerface's voice, say,
Uh-oh.
"You've done good." And as it looks past him, you see a very ornate barrel that is encrusted in gems, gold, diamonds, that is sitting next to the throne. And from it is a silvery tube that grows up into the throne itself. And the silvery tube seems to spread out into this technicolor as a long, almost serpent-like arching form is sitting on the throne of the Skull Goblin King. And it arches up, and you see these silvery, oozy arms resting on each side of the chair as it continues to scale up, and you see a head there, this very angular, sharp, feminine face. And from it, there is now a crown that is an oozy crown in itself. And spilling around the crown is all of this hair. And at the end of each hair stalk is a face attached to it. Like a Medusa's head that at the end doesn't have a snake, but has hundreds of heads at each end of the hair stalk. And you see this.
It's going to be hard to draw.
You see this. You see this angular face look up and say, "I told you, Power Face. Nothing can stop me now. I am Janice, and nothing can stop me." And you're zoomed out immediately, and Aldous just dissipates in front of you as he seems to get sucked into the silvery cord, and he says, "Come back!" And disappears. And there's nothing but pink mist around you. And that is where we're going to end tonight's session.
Oh my
Holy moly,
goodness
y'all.
Never should have
gracious.
taught her to read.
Wow.
Yikes.
Oh man, had we only left her in that wreckage in the very first episode.
Oh, she's
Just be
so
The
somebody
very
sitting
first
there, man.
episode. Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Harlan, Kelly.
well done.